It's
We're
Manic
live.
and Chill. We're live. I gotta get off the phone for a minute. I was checking football stats completely. That's what I was doing. Hey, it's at Shane is the worst. It says it right down there. And I'm back with my buddy, my bro, at Charles Chill FFB, Scott Connor. You might know him from such places as Manic and Chill and Dynasty and Chill and Chasing the Helmet. And I think that's it, right?
That's it for now. Yep. DLF. We both write a DLF.
DLF.
Hey, this is a DLF podcast.
This is a DLF podcast. It would be really awkward if we were doing a DLF like podcast, videocast, and neither of us like wrote for them. That would be awkward.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like if we didn't work for them and we just like guerrilla radioed it.
Yeah. There'll be little buttons that you can press. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Yeah. Check out their podcast. Check out all their written content. Honestly, there's more content on DLF than I can ever even read. I probably read like 20% of it just because there's so much stuff, but it is what it is.
I gotta be honest with you, and I don't say it just because I write for DLF. I've said this for a long time. DLF has always been my first bookmark, and it's always been the one site where I'll read every article except IDP. But I mean, I get people like IDP, but I'll read every article, you know what I mean? Where there's a bunch of other sites, and I'm not gonna name them because that's just mean. I'll go on them and I'm like, I'm not reading this. Like I already know this is going to be a bad article. Not reading it, but I don't feel that way with DLF.
Nope, a lot of good writers. Had a lot of good. We've had a lot of good content. It was funny. We were looking back at I looked back at our predictions that we all, as a staff, had to go back and make some predictions. And
I didn't look.
I commented in the chat thread because I forget who said it, but they said let's go back and do a midseason update on all our predictions. And I'm like, okay, that's a good idea. And then I go back and look at mine and. The two things that stood out were, let's see, Mike Evans will be the best receiver.
How's that
Not so much. Keenan Allen will be the most overrated receiver.
Ooh.
So just those two alone, I whiffed on those. So we can keep those predictions. I mean, I guess I just outed myself, but we can keep those predictions in-house for now. Because, way off.
I mean, and one thing I know that I said in there, I went chalk, and I've been thinking about it all year, is these rookie running backs. Just absolutely stomping my heart out. And I know my prediction for rookie of the year in fantasy was Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Mine was JT.
Yeah. And
we're kind of on the same page with both.
My reasoning was sound at the time. It wasn't just like a Samaj P-Ryan situation where the guy was just stepping in the situation. It was the guy had some talent. We saw the talent. We saw he was a hell of a pass catcher when he was at what do you call that place? LSU.
Yep.
How do you think that's going for him so far this year, by the way? Where do you think he's at just per game scoring?
CEH, let's see. I mean, he's still the thing is with these two guys is you'd ask most people, are CEH, Jonathan Taylor, are those guys busts? And I think most people are going to say yes. And that's just because of how you have to treat these rookie running backs to get the draft capital, and they have the landing spot. I mean, you saw where they were going in drafts. Taylor was going, in the third round of redraft leagues, and that was before Marlon Mack went down. And then, of course, that situation broke after week one when Mack goes down with an injury. You're like, dude, this is the runway where – had I known Mack was out of the way, I would have taken him in the first round. And then CEH is going in the, at the end of the preseason, he was going top 6, top 4 in a lot of drafts. I mean,
startups.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm talking both startups and redraft. I mean, he was going in the first round comfortably at that point. And I would say, what is CEH? I mean, he's got to be top. I mean, they're both top 20 running backs, I think.
CEH is the RB20 on the dot. Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say like 17, 18-ish for both.
Yeah, 14.1 points a game. I'm not excluding anyone from this. There's Christian McCaffrey. I'm counting guys that played 3 and 4 games. One thing about CEH is he hasn't missed any games, so there's that, right?
Nope.
What's funny is I'm looking at his scoring now, and I consider him a bust. I'm not even going to lie to you. Just without looking at the stats, and now I'm looking at the stats. He's had one game where he's been under double-digit scoring.
Yeah,
just one. So maybe he's not as bad as I thought, but you definitely didn't draft him to be a back-end RB2. That's not what anyone expected.
Well, no, and I was looking at Taylor's numbers earlier tonight, and obviously he had he had one game where he busted. I mean, entirely busted. But I think 5 of his other 7 games in PPR leagues have been, I think, 11.5 or 12 points or more. So, I mean, he's getting there. He's hitting his quote unquote projection probably in a lot of weeks. But like, you drafted these guys to hope they give you not only, a low end RB1, but also 2 or 3 of these Aaron Jones, Dalvin Cook,
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey games during the year where they literally just win you the week, or the Derrick Henry 200 plus yard, 2 touchdown type games. And we just haven't seen the ceiling games. And quite frankly, we're in the midst of the Thursday night game right now. They're not getting enough touches to do that. They're not getting enough touches to ever have that game, no matter the game script.
And, if there was 2 backs that we thought were going to get the touches, it would have been these 2, right? Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But, I mean, outside of 2 games, he hasn't deserved more touches. A lot of his scoring has been built on low receiving work, some volume, not a lot of yards. He's had a couple games where there's been, good rushing yards. He's not scoring touchdowns too, which someone will tell you, whoa, there's regression coming because he should be scoring more touchdowns. Sometimes players are just bad at certain things. And from what I've seen, he's not particularly good around the goal line. And I don't know that we're ever going to see a huge increase in touchdown scoring for him. Now, maybe if his, passing work ticks up, maybe. Jonathan Taylor is even... I feel like Jonathan Taylor is even more distressing because it was everything you have. Now it's the same. It's the exact same situation. He had exactly what you wanted. Marlon Mack went down and nothing. I mean, he's a jag right now. For scoring purposes, though, Jonathan Taylor is the running back 23.
Okay.
But, and that's per game. Just looking it up now because I like to see what they do every game. Buddy Addison hopefully will edit this. If not, people just have to hear.
No, you're good. I mean, his game log hasn't been maddening, but then you also look at, he's left a lot of points on the field. Obviously, last game, he had that goal line touchdown early on in the game last week against Baltimore, and then he fumbles and basically gets pulled off the field for 2 quarters. When he scores that touchdown, at that point, he's already at 10 points. And we're in the first quarter. You're going, okay, this is the game where maybe he gives me 25, 20 plus, 25, something like that. And then he fumbles. And it's just one of those situations where you can say day and night, he doesn't look good. He's not reading the holes correctly. I've kept pretty close track on where the Colts are this year. They've been improving. Actually, their run blocking's gone up on Football Outsiders the last 3 weeks. But they're still, even coming into this week, they were still 23rd on Football Outsiders in terms of run blocking. So it's not the run blocking line that they had last year. So just to say, oh, this is you'll hear that narrative sometimes. This is the best offensive line situation or one of the top 5 or 6 in the league. For pass blocking, it is. They've kept Phillip Rivers super clean all year. They're in the top 5 in pass blocking, but run blocking, it's not the case. And maybe that's, how much of that could be, another thing that you're watching this Thursday night game, and Jordan Wilkins has looked terrible tonight. Just a couple touches he's had, he hasn't looked good at all. So it's maddening that he's getting some of those early down work carries or in touches over Taylor. But there were 2 plays. Naheem Hines had massive holes running in the first half. He had 2 chunk gains, more than 10 yards already in the first half. I just haven't seen those holes for Taylor, but I'm not a film junkie. Everyone knows that. So maybe there's something that he's doing that's causing them not to be able to block that way for him. So I don't know. I don't know what to do.
So from that vein, in that vein, I should say, I actually just got an offer in a league. And this feels like it's a rage offer because someone just made it during the game.
During the game. So it's one of those you can trade during the game, or will it be blocked?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure actually. And actually, I guess it's weird. I guess they're trying to see if I'm willing to sell low, but then buy low on a player. So I have Jonathan Taylor.
Okay.
And they are offering me DJ Moore. And obviously coming into the season, I've talked about this a few times this week, a couple different places. DJ Moore was firmly entrenched as one of my probably top 4 dynasty wide receivers. Not so much right now.
Let me ask you this. Before the season, aside, before we discuss settings, scoring, any of that, before the season, even before the rookie drafts, let's say before the rookie drafts, before the Marlon Mack injury, right? Before pretty much everything that we know today, let's say you were taking Jonathan Taylor, Superflex, 101 or 102 or 103. It was pretty much a clear top three with him, CEH, and Burrow. Would you have traded that pick, no matter your needs or anything? Would you have traded it for DJ Moore in May or June or whenever your draft was?
103, Moore would have been gone. I think my cutoff was about 104. No, I wouldn't have traded Moore for one first. No.
So before the season, before we had any information on Marlon Mack's injury or anything like that, you already knew Jonathan Taylor was a top, I don't know, at that point, 6 to 8 running back in Dynasty, probably. I mean, he was already in the mix with Chubb and Mixon and Jacobs and Miles Sanders and all that. I mean, he was probably right outside of that tier or right in it, depending on what your view was. Would you have done it before the season? DJ Moore for JT.
If I'm getting
just
DJ Moore, yeah, I would have. See, I would have. Yeah, okay. I would have taken DJ Moore. I mean, I can't just say it's me that's been high, because he was the wide receiver 5 in September or something like that.
He jumped way up there.
Yep. Yeah, the community was. I didn't know that they caught up with me and basically were where I was with him. Yeah, knowing what I know now, I don't even know how I feel, though. Like, I don't know. It doesn't matter at this point, though, because now the gentleman's revoked the offer already. Live trading, folks. I think I would have hit accept. I think I would have taken DJ Moore if he didn't revoke that offer for John Taylor.
Interesting. Well, I mean, because in a way, you're picking a side because you're buying DJ Moore a little bit low as well. So it isn't like he just came off a massive game and the guy's trying to cash in because he doesn't think it's sustainable or whatnot. So before we even, I'm not even going to get into the discussion about settings and the wide receiver numbers and all that stuff. But I mean, I still look at the scarcity of the running backs and say it's hard for me to trade a running back. And whether you have Jonathan Taylor in your top 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, we've talked on this show before about where we slot in these running backs, where do we slot in the rookies? I just think it's hard to trade running backs for receivers at this point, especially a receiver that is not, I don't insert DJ Moore in my lineup with any more surety right now than Jonathan Taylor. So it's hard for me to say like that's even a win now move or a move for the future. I think you could argue on both sides for that, because who knows what the reset button is going to say next year. Next spring, we could be looking at Jonathan Taylor saying, hey, nothing's changed. But I don't know.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. Like you were saying, it's picking a side. It's going, all right, well, this is who I believe in, because based off what I've seen this year, there's nothing to discern the two. John Taylor's been a disappointment, and DJ Moore has been an incredible disappointment. What's going to change for Jonathan Taylor next year? Even if the run blocking gets a little better, are they going to trust him anymore? I mean, Naheem Hines isn't particularly good at football, but he's producing on the field. He's the one that's out there in the hurry up offense. They don't call it that anymore. The 2-minute offense, 4-minute offense, whatever, things like that. So he clearly has a role, and there's nothing that's happening this year is going to change that.
Right.
There's no reason to change it if it's successful, and it's successful right now. Same thing with Carolina. Their offense, as much as I hate it and it pains me, it's successful for them. They're scoring. So it really doesn't matter that DJ Moore isn't producing. He's doing whatever they need him to do on the field. I guess he's stretching the field and allowing Robbie Anderson to work underneath and Curtis Samuel to work underneath, where, Teddy Bridgewater is actually half decent. So as long as that works for them, if I was their play caller, I wouldn't change anything either. Now, if I was their play caller, obviously it'd be a little different because I own a lot of DJ Moore in fantasy, but I don't think Joe Brady probably plays a lot of fantasy football. I don't even know what the rules are with that, to be honest with you. He might not be allowed to have a team, because then he could call up 40 targets to DJ Moore on a weekend or something. Yeah.
Well, I think one thing with Taylor is, unfortunately, they have now pigeonholed Naheem Hines, I mean, you're right. Naheem Hines, when they're in the 2-minute drill, if they're coming from behind at the end, I mean, in the end of the first half, when they're down 7 and they're basically trying to get into field goal range, it's Naheem Hines every single snap. There's not
Yeah.
even a consideration for another running back. And then you see Naheem Hines working in on a couple downs while they're driving. In between the 20s, he's getting a carry here, a carry there, and then they bring in Wilkins and he gets a series. So he really just squeezes Taylor out from. The only time he's really getting in there is when it's legitimately like first and short, like at the goal line. When they're on the 10-yard line, he's not getting. I mean, they're putting Hines in on those goal line packages that are not inside the 2 or 3 yard line. So it's just, what do you do? Because next year, Hines and Wilkins are there. They're not going anywhere. They're going to be there next year. So, is the situation going to change a whole lot unless Taylor does something to kind of push those other guys out of the way or earn more work on different situations? I don't know. And then, I guess I look at the Panthers, and I think something changed with them a couple weeks ago against the Falcons. I think you kind of got a glimpse in that game of what everyone thought was going to be a smash matchup for Carolina. They ran 49 plays. They didn't target DJ Moore until the fourth quarter. I mean, and it was maddening to watch, but they didn't, that should have been a game where we saw the Joe Brady, Matt Rule offense. And instead we saw a game where they had 49 plays and their defense couldn't stay on the field. Or couldn't get off the field. So, I mean, I kind of wonder, could the season's kind of going away from Carolina at this point? Do you think there's a chance? Because I would be encouraged to buy DJ Moore again, even though I already have, him on a dozen teams. I'd do it again if I knew potentially they have a new quarterback next year, and maybe, kind of build on the offense that we thought we were going to see this year, and maybe they realize it's probably not optimized with Bridgewater.
I don't know that. I don't know. See, that's the problem, is we don't know what they think, right? But you talk about this all the time, right? That we should really be trying to buy the player and not the situation, because the situation is going to change, right? The situation was great for DJ Moore last year, and that's what we thought we were walking into this year, and that's why he was a huge, buy for me in the few leagues that I didn't own him, and that's why I own him in so many leagues, and why it hurts me so much. So I'm still buying on him. Oh, Addison better edit that out.
Nah, you're good. Stuff happens.
Yeah, I'm still buying.
I guess one of my concerns also is I've heard some rumblings already that Joe Brady could be in the run to get a head coaching job next year.
Good. Get him out of there.
So if they run it back with just Teddy Bridgewater and they bring in a coordinator that isn't Joe Brady, does that discourage you a little bit more on that situation? Because I mean, I heard someone talk about maybe Joe Brady going to the Jets and potentially, that selling a guy like Trevor Lawrence to go to the Jets. Like, to me, I'd be excited for something like that. If he leaves Carolina, I think a lot of the appeal to what we thought we might be getting with their offense is gone, because I know it did not stem from Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, everyone knows I'm a Kentucky fan. I've disliked Teddy Bridgewater since college. He's always been what he's been. He was that when he was in Minnesota. He was a game manager. They didn't play with a high pace of play, so it's not optimal for fantasy. And now they're spreading the ball around to, not only 3 receivers, but, they're working in McCaffrey. When he's healthy, he's still taking up 25% market share of a lot of the receptions too. I mean, he's still getting, between him and Mike Davis, they're getting 30% of the targets on a given week too. So there's just not a lot of left there when they're using all 3 receivers and plus the running backs.
Yeah, but see, so that would make me feel better if Brady would get out of town, because I don't think that's a Teddy Bridgewater thing. We saw Teddy Bridgewater pretty much target 2 people last year when he played. He targeted Kamara and he targeted Michael Thomas, right?
And that makes sense. I mean, those are 2 of the best players in the league. So, I mean, I guess it's target the best. Are you saying? Well, I'll let you finish, then I'll get to my point.
So, my thought was that that's what he wants to do. Now he's gonna do whatever the coach tells him to do, obviously. And it's just the way that they're using DJ Moore as a deep threat, which he's fine at. He'd be an excellent deep threat. It's just, unfortunately, that's not Teddy Bridgewater's strength. His strength is underneath, slant passes and things like that, which is what we thought they were going to do with DJ Moore, and that's just not what they've done. So if Joe Brady leaves, I'm fine with that. That's okay. He can go. So I'm still buying DJ Moore. Look, the thing is, the guy's 23 years old still, right? Just 23, 24 years old. His first 2 seasons, he had like the 8th most receiving yards in the history of football, something like that. Um, I know you don't, right now, he doesn't look like an alpha because he's not getting the work. No one looks like an alpha until they get to work. We saw what he was when he was last year, when he was like a little mini version of an alpha, and he put up the numbers, and I think that's what he'll do again at some point. So I went ahead and reoffered that trade to that guy. So hopefully he accepts it.
Interesting. Well, I mean, we can kind of step away a little bit from this and just talk about. I have a trade I wanted to ask you about, and it's a guy that's come up. I've got a couple questions on this player, and right now he's hurt. I'm not too rosy about his situation the rest of the season. And then there were some rumblings that, there's always smoke with these situations. There's always a little bit more than what we probably hear in the media. But you have any idea who the receiver I'm thinking about that I'm basically trying to cash out everywhere that I can, and then I'll buy back later?
So he's playing now, though.
He's injured right now, but probably could be back in the next week or two. But some mysterious happenings surrounding this player.
Well, it's not Michael Thomas because he's back.
No, it's not Michael Thomas.
I got nothing. I'm just going to have to let you tell me who it is.
So it's Kenny Golladay.
God damn it, Kenny Golladay. It's Kenny Golladay, isn't it?
Kenny Golladay. Yeah. Kenny Golladay. Right now, wide receiver 15 on DLF's ADP. And quite frankly, I mean, if we updated the ADP, it's not quite up. Actually, it's updated for November, and he is still wide receiver 15. But I think if we did a brand new startup right now, he probably wouldn't go. And I don't think he'd go in the top 20, quite frankly. But Kenny Golladay, I mean, there was, you remember before he got hurt, he left the last game with a hamstring injury, put up a 0, and he's probably going to be out another week or two. But there was that rumbling that he left the team on Saturday, went home, and they had to go find him basically, and he's upset about his contract.
Right.
Now this guy's a free agent. He's 27 years old. He has dealt with some injuries in his career, so I mean, it's fair for him to sit in here going like, okay, this is my one shot, right? I'm 27 entering free agency. This is my contract right here. I'm getting a 3 or 4 year deal, and then I'm going to be 31. I'm probably not going to have the same leverage that I do right now. But I traded Kenny Golladay today. I'm basically looking to pivot off of him for anybody that I can use rest of the season. Because the other thing about him is I'm not so confident of, what does Detroit have to play for the rest of the season? Like, I'm not so confident he's going to come back and accidentally dominate anyway. So I traded him for Chase Claypool today, straight up. Golladay for Claypool.
You're really buying into Claypool then.
You know what? That's one of those where I have a couple more shares of Golladay than I do Claypool, so I just figured, hey, I'll balance it out a little bit. But I just think the value ascension on Claypool is going to be higher, whether you don't like him or not. I think we get to like January or March, if Juju leaves town, I think you'll be able to cash out on Claypool more than what you can on Golladay. And I see wide receiver 15. I mean, honestly, let me ask you this. I'll ask you these players or Golladay straight up. Golladay or Allen Robinson?
Allen Robinson.
Golladay or Keenan Allen?
Yeah, Keenan Allen.
All right, Golladay or Jerry Jeudy?
Oh, Jerry Jeudy.
All right. Yeah. DJ Chark.
Man, I love Chark too. Those guys are basically the same guy to me.
You know what? That's exactly what I thought. But then I look at Chark. He's 23 and potentially could have Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence.
As opposed to we don't
stuck with Stafford again. Or he becomes. I was mentioning this to Ryan the other day. Golladay could be Sammy Watkins or he could be Allen Robinson. He could go to the Chiefs and not be the alpha. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to go to the Chiefs, but he could go to a situation, he could go somewhere where he is not the alpha. And I'm not saying he's going to become Sammy Watkins, but what if he becomes just a 120 target guy, right? And he just kind of settles in where he is right now, but he doesn't have the age thing or the hype thing going for him from a value perspective. So he just settles right into where he is right now. Or he takes the money and goes somewhere bad like Allen Robinson did and gets a ton of volume. But truly, I mean, did you ever think Allen Robinson had a top 3 ceiling in the NFL? Probably not, just because of his situation over the last couple of years. So I don't know. I don't want to say I'm selling him, but I go down the line and I look at some of these names and it's like, a lot of these rookies, even like if someone came to me with like Jalen Reagor and a third for Kenny Golladay.
Oh, I'll take that.
But that's what I mean. If I
Yeah.
said Jalen Reagor for Kenny Golladay straight up,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about that.
I'll do that. I do that. And I do that
And
before Rager blows up even more. So it could still happen.
Okay, T. Higgins or Kenny Golladay.
That I got to take T. Higgins right now.
Are you almost getting another Kenny Golladay, except for he's tied to probably a better situation, better quarterback? I mean,
yeah, and you're getting a 5-year age discount. So
exactly.
if I can get that 4 or 5-year age discount, I don't even care about the loss. And now the more you talk about this, the less I don't like the Claypool trade. You talked me into it. I will accept that trade if you send it to me. I will take Claypool. Well, you can have my Golladay.
And I'm not saying all these guys are better than Golladay, but you're going down the line. I mean, I just named Robinson, Higgins, Judy, Allen, Claypool, Reagor. All of those guys are below Golladay in ADP. But truthfully, if you say straight up, you may prefer one to the other. I may prefer one to the other. So I think there's deals you can get made, but the intrinsic value that you might be getting, let's say you buy into Reagor and you think he has a big second half because of the Eagles' schedule. And the Eagles are going to be playing for something for the rest of the year. No matter how bad their division is, every one of their games seems to be competitive, and they are going to be in the race all year, no matter what. They're not going to pack it in. And then next year you get the value ascension. So I just can't justify the wide receiver 15 price. So that's where I'm at.
And I mean, if he's still there at that ADP, that's all based off what we thought he was going to do before the season.
Yep.
He was a favorite of a lot of people's. He's a guy I've always liked, but I've never really bought into a lot for whatever reason. I think mostly because of that Detroit offense doesn't really impress me very much. But yeah, he's definitely not the wide receiver 15 this year. He hasn't done anything to justify that. I'm going to have to put it on mute as the police go by.
Shane always has something crazy going on in the background. I've heard you talk about on HQ before. You got something going on in the background when you're trying to record the podcast. Let me ask you this. Right now, what are your thoughts? We haven't talked about this since he went out. What are your thoughts on George Kittle trades?
And the police are gone. So I think a lot of people are looking for a reason to get out on George Kittle. Yep. Like it feels like a lot of people want to just move on from him. Yep. Like we get fatigue over these guys or something where it's like, well, this is next year will be like his 4th year where he's a really good player, a superstar. Like it's time to start moving on from him. He's still only 27?
He's 27, but it's the allure. It's the allure of right now we're in the midst of, if you're trying to compete, you probably were at least over 500 or close with Kittle on your team just because he gave such a positional advantage. But I've traded two teams that had George Kittle. I've made deals for him. And, when you really put his profile under a microscope, I'm not saying he's not the tight end one. I'm not saying he's not going to be the tight end one for the next 3 years. But when you really look at it, if I took the numbers away, okay, and I just put up the production with their age and their situation. So we're talking offense, pace of play, quarterback, all that stuff. I traded George Kittle on a team where it's 2 PPR tight ends and you have to start 13. So deep, right? So getting a 2-for-1 is beneficial. But I traded George Kittle for Darren Waller and Robbie Anderson. I'm going to start both every week. And I mean, to me, that was a no-brainer. First place team that lost Kittle. I don't think there's a better guy to replace him, at least that you can probably go out and buy at a reasonable cost than Waller.
Yeah, and Waller's a guy, and I was wrong on him. I thought that the bottom was going to fall out on his volume. And look, Derek Carr, David Carr, whichever Carr, I don't know. It doesn't matter. He loves his tight ends. It doesn't matter who's there. It really doesn't. Henry Ruggs.
He's the new Zach Ertz, isn't he?
Yeah.
He shows up every year and you can pencil in like 110, 120 targets. Even if when better players come in, it doesn't matter.
Right. So, look, I'm willing to take the loss on that and say that I'm fine with that trade because Darren Waller is going to be a top 3 tight end, top 5 tight end for the next, 2, 3, 4 years. I mean, yeah, Kittle, I don't think he's ever going to have some of those games that Kittle can put up. Correct. Where Kittle, puts up 40, 50 points for you. You know what I mean? I don't know that Waller ever do that. but there's not many weeks when he's going to give you less than double digit scoring.
Yep.
And most weeks he's going to give you right around 15 to 20 points. And at the tight end position, you can't ask for more than that because it's another position where there's no consistency outside of Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, and George Kittle when he plays. We talk about Mark Andrews all the time because he breaks our heart because the consistency's not there, out of his control or whatever, but that doesn't matter. There's 3 tight ends that you can count on for consistency. Good consistency, not bad consistency. There's a bunch of them you can count on for bad consistency, but you don't want that.
Well, it's funny you brought up Andrews because someone asked me the other day and they're like, should I trade Andrews for Waller? And I'm like, well, if you look at the efficiency numbers, through 7 weeks, so this was not excluding last week, but I still have them memorized. Andrews had 39 targets in 7 games, and he was still 7th in the league in terms of fantasy points per target. And it was even a little bit higher when you're looking at his target rate compared to the snaps that he played. Those were the things that we hyped Andrews up last year, because he only played like 45% of the snaps last year.
Right.
And all of his efficiency numbers from a target and a snap perspective were super high. So you're going, man, if the snaps just go up 15, 20% for this guy, he can lose, 20% of his efficiency and still outperform what he did last year. And, we've seen him keep the efficiency this year. I think he's at like 63% of the snaps for the season, something around there. But he's just the numbers say he should be getting more targets, and he's just not. And so, you look at Waller, and it's the opposite. Waller's getting all the volume. He's not doing very much with it, but it's like I can lock Waller in for 9 targets a game, 9 targets a game, and I'm like, I can't ride that out. I can't ride the Andrews efficiency train for another year over Waller. So, I mean, that's one where I think, it's almost like the same argument that used to have with Zach Ertz. I mean, I keep bringing him up, but like, the knock on him was like, well, if his volume ever goes away, he's going to suffer. And it's like, well, how many years in a row do you just say that Darren Waller's just going to earn the targets every year? He's just going to earn them. And that's the team. The team trusts him. The quarterback trusts him. The coach trusts him.
And that's the exact argument that was made. And I made it myself against Jarvis Landry for years. And it's finally come to fruition. It's finally come to fruition. So people can finally be like, I told you. Well, it doesn't matter because he gave you 6 years where he got the volume. It doesn't matter that it took, like we're saying, Zach Ertz, it took him to get 115 targets a year, 120 targets a year for him to be a top 3 tight end. Whatever, he got it. Darren Waller is just going to get it as long as Carr is there. And, we can't tell the future. But I don't see any reason for them to move on from Carr right now. So you got the rest of this year and probably all of next year of Darren Waller, which is a whole hell of a lot of time. 1.5 years, even in Dynasty, is a long time, even though we like to pretend that we're going to be making plans for 7 years down the road.
Yep. Well, and I mean, if you just take the, some of the volume numbers that, you put on that Darren Waller has this year. I mean, right now he has 71 targets in 8 games. So, I mean, he's on pace to even smash like what Ertz had in his year. He had, I think, 135 targets 2 years ago, something like that. Waller's on pace to smash that. But just imagine. I think there's a little bit of kind of sourness still on Dynasty owners with Waller because he came out of nowhere. He was a guy that basically was completely unknown for 4 years and then bursts on the scene. So I still think people are a little hesitant to just anoint him as a stud. But I mean, can you imagine if you saw anything close to those numbers on like Noah Fant? People would be going crazy. People would be going absolutely. I mean, if Evan Ingram continued to do this, people would be going crazy. And so I just, I was wrong on Waller, just like you. I remember we were both on the same page with Waller before the season of him being a big sell, and it just hasn't come to fruition.
Yep, I was real wrong on that one. Sorry to anyone that took my advice.
Maybe we'll do a episode before the season ends of all the things we got wrong because it's been a lot so far. I got to say.
I think people enjoy them, but you go through that, and that's how you figure out, where did I go wrong? And I think with Waller, I know where I went wrong with that. I just projected too much. I projected too much on evidence that wasn't even available off of what things that made sense to me. That I go, well, now they're adding Bryan Edwards and they have a healthy Tyrell Williams and they have Henry Ruggs. So they're clearly, and they added Lynn Bowden Jr. as a running back. So clearly they're not going to target Waller as much.
And they're going to target Josh Jacobs 60 times.
Oops. So, yeah.
All right, last thing. You said you have trivia for me. I have trivia for you, and then I want to ask you one question.
I lost it anyway, but go ahead.
You lost it.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I heard this one the other day. I won't say where, but it was just curious. It kind of stood out to me. But 3 running backs this year have every single one of their carries for their team inside the 5-yard line. Name who they are. 2 of them are obvious. I'll give them to you. Derrick Henry and James Robinson.
Well,
but can you name the third? And the reason I'm asking you on this show is because this is a Shane favorite right here.
I have favorites.
No, this is a guy you were on.
It's not Miles.
You picked him up everywhere, a couple times last year, this year, the year before.
I got nothing.
All right. So Josh Adams has every single New York Jets carry inside the 5 this year, which accounts for, I believe, 1 carry in week 1.
Oh, that is that's terrible. That's terrible. Jesus. That hurt.
That's a good one.
But Michael P. Ryan's going to get a chance to run it out for as the lead dog the rest of the year. So I'm hoping that he might even get a carry. That's ridiculous. They have one rushing attempt.
It was week 1, so they haven't been there since.
Wow.
So wow. All right, last thing I wanted to ask you. One thing you're doing in the next 2 weeks as a Dynasty owner: buying, selling, just a strategy. Like, are you aggressively pursuing points before there's no more sellers in your leagues, or just one tip?
I mean, you should always be aggressive, right? Like, I feel like that's a given, isn't it?
I mean, you got to pick a lane, man. We've talked about that before. You got to pick a lane and go. You can't just sit and wait and wait and wait. Otherwise, you get stuck.
Yeah, so last time we were on, it was about 2 weeks ago, right? So if you haven't already picked the lane, after this week, you have to. Look, and I understand I'm not talking about teams that are 4 and 5. Well, even them, really, because there's no place worse than being stuck in the middle. But even if you're 4 and 5, I'm more apt to just say, you know what? If I think I can make a run, I'll still trade future assets for it. It might not be the smart move, and it's really team dependent, blah, 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 blah. But just be aggressive one way or the other. Like, I want to fail miserably, or I want to exceed expectations.
Yep.
Like I said, there's nothing worse than being in the middle. I can fix everything but mediocre. Mediocre is just bland. There's like, you have these assets where you're like, I really can't do anything with these. I got a bunch of players that I can get mid-second round picks for. Like, I'm never going to be good. I'm never going to be bad. I'm just going to be this little purgatory. Yep. So just my thing is always be aggressive. Don't be stupidly aggressive, but be aggressive.
Yeah, and kind of piggybacking on that, read your rules, read your settings, understand how your draft order is calculated. I'm in some leagues where, like the DLF Champions Cup Series leagues, those leagues, the draft order is based on potential points, except for the last 3 teams. So if you make the playoffs and you lose in the semifinals, you are subject to the potential points. So I have a team, for instance, that I think is 4th to last in potential points, but it's 6 and 3. So I'm sitting there with that team going, man, I'm in good shape because I can potentially make a run at the playoffs. If I make the finals, really the only way I would not be able to use those potential points as getting like the 104 or the 105 would be if I make the finals, basically, or I win the 3rd place game, which really, I'm kind of curious on whether you want to even win the 3rd place game at that point. Yeah. But, the point is potential points is going to carry through to the draft order. And then vice versa, there are leagues where you might think your record is going to get you a high draft pick. And then, because someone mentioned to me the other day, they said, I'm in line to get the 102. And I read the bylaws and it's like, nah, dude, it's potential points. And now you're 1 and 8, but you are 6th in potential points. So you're locked into like the 107, no matter how many games you lose. So, I mean, your strategy should almost be, hey, I mean, in leagues like that, I'm picking up like Darius Geis on the waiver wire. And I'm dropping anybody that's scoring points, those kind of moves. So, I mean, you got to know that even though when you pick your lane, if you go towards the tanking end, understand what makes up your draft order and vice versa. There's a couple of leagues where I'm already sunk in potential points and I'm 4 and 5. I might as well go for it because my draft pick's not going to matter. I'm not going to improve my draft pick no matter if I win or not. So I might as well play week to week. Right. Go out and buy Mike Davis. If you need a win this week, go try it. If you have a couple extra picks, I mean, make moves like that and see if you can get back in the hunt.
That's it. That's the show, guys.
That's it. Back to Thursday Night Football.
Night Football. Naheem Hines might have scored another touchdown.
Yeah, no. I get back to watch it. But hit the buttons below, subscribe. Shane is the worst. Charles Chill FFB at DLF Football. Read our articles. Check out our content. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Although I'm guessing anybody watching this probably already is a subscriber. But we'll try to do another show next week. With that, see you later, DLF Nation.